Hello and welcome back. I hope you've got your coffee in hand because this next topic is going to be piping hot. We're discussing whether people have romanticized what it means to be a strong woman. And I'm joined by a powerful panel who will help me unpack this. As women, there's always been this expectation for us to be strong with sayings like, "Watinta abafazi, watinta imbokodo." Or a woman holds a knife by the blade. And the age-old umfazi uyabekezela. Do you think that this is narrative of us being strong is still relevant? To our guests at home, you can also weigh in on the conversation by adding questions in the chat or by chatting to us on Twitter. That's @MomentumZA using the hashtag SheOwnsHerSuccess. Welcome to Tammy, Ndoni, and Charlotte. Lovely having you all in studio.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And I must say, very impressed by your bios. Tammy Dish, of course, needs absolutely no introduction. LGBTQI plus activist and founder of the Feather Awards. Ndoni Mkunu, climate scientist and founder, founder of Black Women in Science, as well as Charlotte Msubuga Mukasa, head of Momentum Brand Marketing. Lovely to have all of you here. First question is for Ndoni. You work in a predominantly male industry. How do you think that your experience has shaped how you define strength, especially in your pursuit of success?
Sure. So I think the definition of strength for me changed when, in these kind of spaces, you kind of have to overcome. And overcoming means you have to understand, what does it mean for me to become a better person tomorrow? And that can be improving your skill base. That could be improving your understanding of a certain topic. That could be actually pushing yourself into a corner where you say, I'm uncomfortable here, but for me to get comfortable, I need to understand why am I so uncomfortable in the space. And so working in that space really has redefine strength in what does it mean to overcome. Overcoming can be waking up in the morning. Overcoming could be I wrote a paragraph. Overcoming could be I wore a high heel instead of wearing flats. And so all of that is what does it mean for me, and that's been strength for me.
Is part of owning your success also making it easier for the next woman?
Definitely it's making it easier for the next woman. Do I think that it is the next woman? I don't think it's the next woman. I think it's going to take a few more generations before we actually get to the parts where we own our success. We still, Nonto earlier spoke about imposter syndrome. We're still dealing with all of that. And so it is really something where, we may talk about it, but it doesn't mean you have overcome it. So there's still a lot for us to work through ourselves in understanding what does it mean for the next generation of women.
Ndoni, it sounds like you asking us to be patient.
Yes.
We must be even more patient
with
after
yourself.
all of the waiting.
With yourself. With
Okay.
yourself. And so when we do talk about strength and being strong, for who and for what? So it's for you. So you have to be patient with yourself.
Start here.
Otherwise it's just pressure on pressure on pressure, and that's unnecessary.
Thank you for that. Charlotte, this one is for you, looking fabulous in that success,
darling.
unstoppable red.
Kindred
Yes. Knowing what you know now, how would you define being strong in the context of owning your success?
Geez, this is such a difficult one for me, but I'm gonna put it out there, knowing that the men and women that I share boardrooms with are actually watching. So I'm putting it out there. I can't take it back after this, but I think a lot of executives or even just working professional women like myself are owning their success, but we're still suffering from what we call Queen Bee syndrome. And what
Explain.
I mean by Queen Bee.
Tell us.
So to all the people who love Beyonce out there, to the Beehive, I love you, but the Queen Bee syndrome that I am talking about is actually where you feel because you are rising in power or you are being promoted that you need to be assertive and confident and behave like a man and leave aside any feminine traits, be it your interpersonal skills or being empathetic with your team, and you start losing yourself along the journey, and the higher you go up, or even if it's just a straightforward trajectory, you start losing yourself. Now, I personally believe men and women both have interpersonal skills. I believe men and women can both be empathetic in the workplace. The point is, in terms of Queen Bee syndrome, is that you're going to the top and you're leaving everybody behind you, and in addition, you are losing your core and yourself. So men can also suffer from Queen Bee syndrome, but women suffer from it more. So in terms of owning our success, I think there are a lot of structural, societal, personal, financial, psychological barriers that we've got to go through. So every single time I see a woman in the boardroom owning her success, I say halala, and I even say it, watintumfazi, watintumbokoto, which does mean different things to different people.
What does it mean to you?
Oh gosh, I wish you didn't ask me this, because I had a fight this weekend and with my team this week, because my team is divided. There's the one side, and I'll tell you which side I'm on just now, but there's the one side that says watintumfazi, watintumbokoto. They still believe in it because they say you strike a rock, you strike a woman, and a rock is indicative of their strength. It doesn't mean because you say you are a rock that you cannot cry and that tears do not flow from that rock. It's just saying from the women who marched to the union buildings, they still believe in the ethos of standing up for something. That was group one. And then the group two was like, no, it's got to go, because a rock isn't symbolic of the kind of strength that a modern woman should associate themselves to. There are different interpretations of what strong means. And I'm in the middle, because I'm saying how you define success is up to you, and how you define strength is up to you. If you need to be patient with yourself, you know your journey much better than the other. So I don't think we should look to a movement, a group, a term per se in terms of defining our strength, because we spend a lot of time arguing in boardrooms about terms when we should be out there activating the term of how it is to own your success and giving freedom to women to define what that means for themselves. And that's just me.
I hear you, but I must say, what I found, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I found is that whenever, especially a man, calls me strong,
Yes.
you are so strong, Sherlyn. You are so independent, hey? Dasi vir jou nie, hoor? What I find is that is often the tone that people speak in when they're about to abuse you, when they're about to exploit you. So because you are so strong, I can ask you to do more without paying you more.
Performance punishment, that's what I call it.
Oh, I love that you've got a word for
I've
everything.
got a word for it, performance punishment, honestly. But I completely agree with you, Sherlyn, and maybe we can ask Tammy and Ndoni for their opinion just now. But when you look at Hollywood, we love seeing Catwoman played by Halle Berry. We love seeing Scarlett Johansson in The Avengers. We love seeing, what's her name, Charlize Theron, our own, playing, I forget the movie, something about Max something.
Mad Max.
Mad Max, that's it. We love seeing the hero depicted as strong physically, and I'm going to say it on camera, whipping ass. We love to see it because it gives us a sense of she can do it, or she can do bad all by herself. But Hollywood is Hollywood, guys. Once you leave the cinema and you get into the real world, that depiction that's being played out by Halle Berry and Scarlett Johansson and Charlize Theron is a fantasy that stops somewhere. And I think we forget and we take that into the real world. So part of that abuse that you're talking about is also stemming from a fantasy that we build in our minds, and people start taking advantage of it because it means strong means you can take it. And it's not always the case. It's okay sometimes to say that you are not okay.
Tammy, my next question is for you, but before I ask you, I just want to say hello, new hair.
Hello.
I saw you this morning, and you did not have pink hair.
I turned up, baby. I've even got lips. I decided to honor you guys, okay? Yeah, because I know that a lot of people think that, men don't wear lipstick, and they actually do.
Let's talk about pronouns. Many people get it wrong. I want to respect you and get it right. What pronouns
My
do you
pronouns
prefer?
are him, he, his, so you can refer to me as him.
Hello,
Yeah.
him.
Hi,
Hello,
how are you?
he. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
So, Tammy, the concept of being strong between men and women very, very different. I think we
Yeah.
can agree with that. Often when women are told to be strong, it's when they're being dealt the losing hand. What do you think it'll take for society to redefine that in order for them to see a woman as successful in her job, in her marriage, in her household, in all spheres of her life?
Jesus Christ, it's a lot, ne?
It's a
It
lot.
sounds like a lot. Thank you for having me. I think that for me, as a queer person, I largely believe in how we're going to teach our children now and how we're going to raise children who are going to be in a non-binary world. So gender roles in society have kind of like created this model of what women should be and what they should do, what men should be and what they can do. And there are certain places where boys can't go or girls can't go. And I think it becomes important for us to literally kill gender roles.
How?
Right? You
How
know,
do we do it?
practically stop assigning, like she was saying earlier on, stop saying that women must go dish up for you. If you're raising a boy child or a girl child in the house, everybody can wash the dishes. In meetings, if you are going to be sitting in the boardroom, you don't pull that kind of queen bee syndrome, because you're about growing everybody else and getting to a point where we're equal, we see each other. I think everybody needs to get to a point where we're all humans first before
Yes.
we start speaking about, you know, what is the role of being this successful woman at home who has to wake up every single morning, wash the kids, prep they lunch, go to the office, put on this thing like performative stuff, you know, where you're on in your lipstick and in your heels and you're playing this role, and then you must come back home to the same man who expects you to play another role, right? But I also think that it's something that women must do themselves, because there's a way in which, you know, I think it feels like you're not woman enough when you're not the one that's cooking for your husband, when you're not taking care of the children. It needs to change. All of those things. Everybody can, anything that you're doing now, another man can do.
And I also love how you say that the change must actually start in our families.
Yeah.
I mean, it was scary when it almost sounded like we came from the same family, because we've been socialized in such similar ways. You know, you were talking earlier about how you still have to dish up for your younger male cousin, and how this is
Problematic.
But how
Problematic.
to older folk, it's just how things should be. Know
It's
your
the
place,
trauma.
dear woman.
It's a trauma.
Yeah.
It's a trauma. I think we must also address the collective trauma that we have created as a society and start going back and saying, this was wrong. We have to unlearn it, right? You were talking earlier on about how it's going to take a couple of generations for us to see this, she owns her success, and to live in it, and for it to be a reality. But it also takes us now dealing with that approach in the house. This was traumatic. It shouldn't have happened. Let's move. You know, we can correct it. We have to. It's like parenting. We at our age are learning to reparent. You know, there's so many things that were said to us. We spend most of our lives being told who we can't be. And then you wake up one day and you're like, no, actually I can wear lipstick, you know, and I can be strong, and I can be weak, and I can allow all of me to feel all these emotions. So it's the trauma that we must address. I thought we'd have tissues here, but anyway.
Sorry, next time.
No.
But I love that. I mean, Charlotte, you mentioned how unique success is to all of us. And so if our success is unique, it speaks to our own uniqueness. And so when we love and embrace ourselves first, only then we can move forward and build. Okay, so another question for all of y'all. Being soft and strong aren't mutually exclusive concepts. So you can be strong and you can be soft. I understand that constantly having to be strong can be very tiring, but also there's a role that being strong plays. There's a time and a place for everything. How do we get that balance, that sweet spot between the hard and the soft, that beautiful middle ground?
It's a pity because, you know, the word strong, when you actually search for it. It's actually got some good words, you know. It's having power, it's being influential, it's understanding yourself more. And that's a good thing, you know. But what has happened is that when you change the word for the reason, then it becomes heavy. So for who and for what? If I have to be strong for myself, that's nice. Then I can be soft in that word. And I don't like the word soft. In the sciences, they have hard science and soft science. And the soft science is your humanities and your music. The hard science, your physics and your mathematics. But at the end of the day, all of it works together to change a system. So you yourself are a system, and you need both of those elements inside. So when you are defining strong, and when you feel like strong is heavy, you need to understand, why do I have to be strong? For who and for what reason? And then you're going to understand why it feels heavy. So,
and maybe some introspection. Is this my weight to carry?
Yeah. Is it my weight to carry? Being vulnerable, is it a soft thing? Do I view that as being soft? And so it's all of these terminologies that have really just been twisted, that have good meaning, but they you know, we've twisted it wrong. If you Google weakness says when you're fatigued. You know, it doesn't talk about the lack of goals, reaching your goals and reaching, buying that car or having that perfect body. It talks about you being physically tired. But now we ourselves have actually transformed that word into being something that's toxic. And so we need to actually understand, every time I feel weak, why do I feel weak? Who made me feel weak? And what happened? Same reason. When I have to be strong, is it because I need to rest, or is it because someone else needs to rest? And those two have different weights.
Do you feel like it's easier to find that balance as you age, as we all become older?
No, I think it becomes clearer that we have to, you know, honor yourself first. And I think COVID-19 taught us that a lot. We're meeting ourselves for the first time, and we're saying, I think what's important for me now is to respect, is to take care of the body. I was saying earlier on that once you get to a point where you go past wanting to give yourself permission to feel, then you are in a better place, because you can express and you can be. I take weakness as an activator of my strength. I allow that to be something that goes in. It's like catching a flu for me. My system kicks in, and you know, my immune goes, okay, body, fight for yourself. And you do those things, but I allow it to express. I allow my body to feel, and I think we need to take times and moments to actually listen to ourselves. We have the answers within. You know, you were talking earlier on about being supportive and being compassionate with your team and speaking to those things. Life is pushing us there, where we really have to be kinder to ourselves, because that's a reflection. People who betray themselves are most likely going to betray the next person. So I don't want to be in a space where I betray how I feel. I want to exist and feel. I want to cry and be vulnerable, you know. Vulnerability is a space where everybody should go to, you know. It's not like, we were saying earlier on that it feels like you want to take, because men don't express, right?
Or men have been taught not to
express. Boys don't cry, these sayings, you know. And Donnie was talking about words and how important they are and how we can redefine them and own them, right? And change that narrative completely. We need to also go there with vulnerability, you know. As soon as we literally have everyone know that they can express, then we're not sending people to corners and to little parks to go and have a crying festival and then coming back and then playing this superpower role. You know what I mean? I think there's power in vulnerability. I think there's enormous amount of honesty, and that changes. You know, we work with people who deal with energy a lot, you know, and it's important that whoever you're exposed to in a day, you're able to change or to create a very harmonious environment, you know. Coexist, allow, ask people, hi, how are you? Fine. It's so normalized. But hi, how are you?
Wait,
you know, listen. Companies did that a lot now. They were offering support to their staff members and everybody else, because I think people need therapy. You know, when we grew up as children, we were told, what do you mean? Why are you crying? There's nothing wrong with you. Or therapy was looked down on. Like, why are you?
Do you know what I was told?
Yeah.
Therapy is not for us.
Imagine.
Therapy is only for white people. Why are
Yeah.
you paying someone to go and complain? You're bringing shame on the family.
Yeah.
And you know what happened in that moment? It made me want to be more vulnerable.
Yeah.
It made me want to go on radio,
Yeah.
on my breakfast show, and talk about my anxiety,
Yeah.
talk about my depression, because I was thinking, if my family is telling me, and not everyone in my family, certain members, but if I'm being told to shh, how many others are being told to not be vulnerable, to not feel, to just be strong and kapan?
How do you
know?
invite people in? That's a thing. Like, I think a lot of times it becomes a shock for people. Like, oh, you've got problems, Charlotte. No, you're fine. It's like, no. Let me invite you in. Yeah, get it together. Clean up. No. Let me invite you into my world and let you know how it feels. You know, you're seeing that happening globally, where mental health is at the core of everybody's topic.
I mean, Naomi Osaka, one of the biggest sports stars in the world,
So the world must stop. Actually.
saying, actually,
Yeah.
Another one is Simone Biles. Think about it. There's so many examples, and kudos to them, honestly.
and
They almost-
again, redefining what it means to be
Yeah.
a strong
Yes.
black woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because they think that we must like always play this role and show up in the world and come in, and you're disconnected. It's like, I'm here, I'm at Momentum, I work here, I'm going to give them my 8 hours, and then when I leave, I'm a different person. Or no,
Yeah.
all of that is you.
Charlotte,
all
how
linked.
do you find your balance?
Let me put it out there in a banner. There is no balance.
No,
Yes.
I'm
Let's
going
just
back.
No, honestly, let's just kill this myth. It doesn't exist, Every time I speak to Tammy, he always touches me on my studio, because I was thinking about it, there is no balance, and I want to respond as a parent, in terms of the word balance. Before COVID-19, oh gosh, girl, I used to dress. I had my bold lip, my cufflinks, you name it. I didn't have a briefcase, but I had it together, like visually. Visually. And then COVID-19 came, and guys, my team has seen that I don't have a perfect life. I have to balance speaking to them, download Peppa Pig, deal with the tantrum on the side here, late for meetings because the pots are burning. I've got to Uber my helper here. It's just, there is no balance. And they've seen that mask that I had on for 9 years at Momentum, it just crumbled in front of them on Zoom, on Teams meetings, and they realized, girl doesn't have her it together, actually. So for me, I have played to that vulnerability, and actually, it's not me and my own doing. COVID, as you said, introduced us to ourselves, as well as to our colleagues and parents and all the other people that were meeting online. People jumping in the background, and then you're like, oh my God, that is not supposed to be my Zoom background, A child that's got snot running down, nappies, and it's just crazy, And I think we do still try and put that perfect, sea breeze picture in the Zoom background, because there is a time and a place where you're like, you know what, this job interview means a lot to me, and I need to show up well. So there are times where we do tighten up and package well for a particular situation. I'm not going to pretend that I let it out all the time, no. But COVID-19 has shown me that there is no balance. But what's beautiful about it is that is now how I have redefined success. Success for me as a parent is owning up to my vulnerability so that my son can see that it's okay for me to cry. So that my son can see that mommy doesn't always have to have it, doesn't always have it together, which means I don't have to always have it together when I'm struggling with homework or the ABCs, or I don't want to go to school. Sometimes mommy doesn't want to go to work too, because I am showing him that it is human to go through ups and downs, and that is how I define success now as a parent. So for those of you that thought I had it all together, guess guess what? It's out there now. I don't, because there's no such thing as a balance. And that is why I enjoyed your reference of Naomi and Simone. And Indoni, you've mentioned a lot of references when we've been off-site at so many shoots before, just in terms of unpacking vulnerabilities. And every single time I'm with Indoni, she makes me realize I need to do more of that. You know why? For me. Not for anyone else, for me. I'm like, if she can do it, I can do it. There is a lot of retraining and reprogramming that Charlotte still has to do. And I have to do that reprogramming while I am teaching the next generation. It is hard, which is why I say there is no such thing as balance, because I'm doing my job and the job of a parent. But guess what? My success is making sure that I don't quit and that I persist.
Yes, Mama.
And then you add grief into all of that. You know, you add loss.
So much grief,
and
so much loss.
It's not physical grief. It's also job grief. You know, people are losing their jobs. They're losing their income. You know, and all of that. It's like, where do we draw the line on this being okay with the sea breeze picture on our Zoom call? You know, when does it end, and when do you actually say, you know what, guys, I need some time off because I'm not okay, and that is actually okay to say, you know, and we were never allowed to do that because we'd have to wake up and go to the office and wear our high heels and our lipstick, and then it's like, but you woke up and you got dressed, and you know you need to be here from 9 to 5. Your 9 to 5 now is your personal space, and your personal space opens up, you know, your personal life and your personal thinking, you know. So, yeah, it's hard.
The 95 policy.
There's no balance. We're winging it. Everyone is winging it. We are trying to make things work.
And doesn't it help saying that together?
Yeah, it does, because for me, you know, owning my success, the hashtag is #SheOwnsHerSuccess. And what's beautiful about the stories we see online and even on the couch here today is that we're doing it confidently. It's in that word. We are owning up to our vulnerabilities confidently. We are overcoming our societal and psychological barriers, whether it's imposter syndrome. We are turning it into personal confidence. So as long as what you're doing, you know, you're headstrong, you're focused, and you're confident, what the world says about how you're defining confidence is up to them. At the end of the day, you owe it to yourself to sit back, maybe, yes, fall into a little bit of your weakness or your fatigue, rest, reflect. I think Nodok also talked about the different R's before. I can't remember them offhand, but there's something about just reflecting and, you know, and rejuvenating your spirit to then take on that journey again. And, you know, as Momentum, our tagline is here for your journey to success. And part of the hashtag #SheOwnsHerSuccess property is saying, whatever your journey, be it short, be it long, if it's got hills, it's got mountains, if you go off the beaten path, when you decide to come back to your purpose, whatever that is, own it and own it confidently. At the end of the day, if that's all you do, you know, even through the grief and the loss and the ups and downs, and even if you don't get the pay that you deserve, you know, there are a couple of topics that have been featured here on this couch. You're not always going to get what it is that you deserve, and you're not always going to get what it is that you need. But if you are able to define success and you are focused on it, and you don't retreat, you do not surrender, and you continuously persist. Rest, persist, rest, persist.
Managing yourself.
Yeah, I love
Hats
that.
up.
Rest, persist.
Yes.
Rest, persist. And rest is so important.
Yeah.
So we all spoke about COVID-19.
And we don't give that to ourselves.
Huh?
And we don't give that to ourselves.
Not
Again,
enough.
that
We don't
permission.
rest enough.
Yeah.
Even that word permission.
Yeah.
Permission to
Yeah.
rest. My question now is, the pandemic has changed our lives, but soon the world will open up and we will hopefully all be vaccinated. How do we ensure that we don't just go back to the old days?
I hope that question's not coming my way.
It will never happen. It will never happen ever again.
I wish I was as confident
No,
as
you
you
know
are,
what?
because it's so incredible to see how businesses are changing, putting the spotlight on mental health. But like I said, things are going to be safe again for us to move around. Are we just going to go back? And also,
No.
why are you so confident that we won't?
No, you know why? Because I actually really feel like if anyone hasn't learned from COVID, they will never learn ever again. So there will be groups of people who will decide to go back to that, you know. But I think now we're at a place where you can literally call people out because you know that this thing does not work this way. You've seen it, it's happened to you. You've never had COVID-19. You've seen people break down. You've seen how I can be productive at work. You've seen how I can be fully functional without all these policies and all these other things you've put in place to organize me. You've seen it, right? So how, and at some point you acknowledged it, and we were allowed to do it. So how do you go back there? We need to review those policies
Why
again.
would we want to go back there?
Yeah, people must review how they've lived their lives. I know there are a lot of people who've been like, you know, I've been doing this work for the last 9 years. Do you know how many people ask themselves the question, if I died today, am I doing what I love? And I asked that question to a lot of my friends.
True.
And 80% of my friends said, no, I actually don't want this. I actually
And I
don't
think
like
many
it.
people are having those conversations, and that's why we're seeing people turning their side hustles into proper businesses
Yeah.
now. People
Yeah.
saying, I quit, I actually don't care how much I'm getting paid, I am not happy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and you realize that this has been a very stressful space. And again, respect, honor yourself. You stop there. And we must, the same thing again, calling people up, the family you're dealing with, we go back there. You talk to your companies and you talk to your friends around you and you ask them to treat you better.
Yeah. I'm reminded of RuPaul now. If you don't love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love someone else? And I feel like that's the golden thread. Not just today, even last week. It all starts here.
Yeah. And they've been simple. You know, they sound very cliche and they're very simple. It just takes time for you to say, I actually get it.
Yeah,
I
you
get
know,
it.
I just wonder if we've actually had enough time to actually understand happiness, understanding yourself, because it wasn't under a normal circumstance of what we went through. Things were very not balanced. And I always wonder about how we're going to define happiness, how we're going to define ourselves now, based on everything is almost based, the foundation is almost like trauma. And so for me, that's my concern, is that, you know, if I say I'm not happy, then I start my business and I'm still not happy. Then I go back to work and I'm still not happy. And we haven't actually dealt with the real issue of where was I basing my decision making and how was I in my decision making for my happiness at that time. So for me, it's always just like, if everything was normal, I'd feel very happy that the world is turning into, you know, I'm leaving this and I'm moving into this and I've questioned my career. But you're questioning your career maybe because you're not getting a job. You're questioning your career because maybe you lost a parent. And that is trauma. You weren't in a space where you were stable and then you questioned. So for me, it's always like, we need to just be sensitive and aware of these words that we're using. Happiness, joy, peace, you know, all these words are not on a foundation that is normal.
One
We need to charge the
word
right
that
energy
you
into
Yeah.
them.
Yeah,
did
they're right.
mention
We need
was-
to start, actually, we need to start again. We actually haven't done anything because once COVID is done, you still have to deal with the trauma of losing your parents in 2 days or in the same
and
night.
we still haven't dealt with generational trauma,
No.
so we're
We
dealing
have
with
done nothing.
trauma
Yeah.
on top
Yeah.
of trauma.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't think everyone has the luxury of time
Yeah.
to go to therapy,
Exactly.
to
But
have
therapy
these
is all around.
conversations.
But therapy is around you.
Yeah.
Therapy is around you. So when I said you must also check your surroundings and the people you hang around with. If you are unable to be vulnerable and to speak openly with the people, then you're with the wrong people. So that's why we can't also go back to the way we were before COVID. Because you've seen who people are now. I've met Charlotte and without makeup and everything else, and she's properly delivered her vulnerability, and so we connected differently with people. You know,
Yeah.
you nurture those relationships and you see what works for you and what doesn't. So the collective trauma, yes, is still going to exist for a longer time. But therapy is around. It doesn't mean that you must see a professional. There are people who are around us, right? And we share notes. We speak about these things. When I visited my therapist, this is what she said, you know? And you'd find that you probably have a similar kind of experience. And you pick up from there, you know? It takes conversations. This conversation is important, you know? And there are thousands and thousands of people watching it right now, and they probably thinking, oh God, I've been feeling like this, and now I'm listening to Charlotte. So it's around you. It doesn't, it's not, and people, and it is expensive, yes, for those who can go for professional help, but it's around you. Look
There
at
are other ways,
yeah,
not the
not
just the professional.
watch
avenue.
videos, watch empowering things, you know. I think a lot of people operate from a very disempowered space, and victim consciousness. Oh, the world hates me, the OL doesn't open for me, this, and then COVID, and then my parents died, change. That's disempowered, right? We want positivity. It's what I do also with my entire life. Like, if I walk into a room and I'm met with resistance and it's a little bit cold, I just turn up the love.
Most people will
Turn up
retract.
the love. No.
Yeah.
You are like, I'm gonna be more of me.
You know why?
I'm
Because
gonna give you more love.
people fear
Shirley,
rejection.
What kind of person are you? I think I would turn. I think I would run away.
No, you fear rejection. There's so many things that
It's
we
true,
fear.
it's true,
We
it's
fear. You are told.
That's true.
Charging
But I love
energy.
that. I'm not
Charging
liked
energy.
here. Let me be more of me.
Yes.
Let me turn it
I'm
up.
going to, yes.
And I also love what you spoke about social media. What are you watching?
What are you consuming?
I think we sometimes forget that we curate these spaces for ourselves. So if you are following people who make you feel some type of way, unfollow. Follow inspiring people, people who make you feel good.
Because you know why? We've also lived in our lives and we've spent so many hours and times and years with people who hate themselves that when we find or we sit or we try and love ourselves, it feels weird even for ourselves. It's like, how dare I love myself better? How dare I say no? How dare I cry? How dare I decide to check myself in for a retreat because, oh, what? My friends are going to say, oh, that person has gone to, you know,
And
they call them names,
And
you know?
instead, we should ask ourselves, who am I not to love me?
Yeah.
Who am I not to give myself
Yeah,
some
I love
rest?
myself.
But
I don't
isn't
need
that
permission.
strength- Isn't that another way of defining strength as well? You know, where you are able to stand for yourself, even and not necessarily gravitate with the crowd, but because of your belief system, because of your values, because of what you stand for, because of what you're called to do, that you're saying that this is how I'm going to choose to live my life. And if it means unfollowing certain people, if it means not necessarily trending with certain groups, etc. I think in and of that, in and of itself, is strength. You know, you opened up by saying, how do we define strength, and is it, are we over romanticizing, you know, what strength means? And I think this is just another example, and a good one at that, actually, in terms of how we define strength. And sometimes it gets lonely, but I think if your core is strong, and if you've got great mentors that come in any form and shape, abo mama, abo dada, your neighbor next door, even kids in and of themselves, because of their innocence, are therapeutic in how they look at the world. You know, I call them the blueprint of where we all started. So I think that we need to be able to, I don't want to say stop romanticizing how we define strength per se, but I do want to encourage us to redefine not just success, but also redefine what it means to be strong and build in different connotations so that the next generation of kids that are coming through, to Ndoni's a point earlier on, when they hear the word strong, it means something different. When they hear the words weak, it means something different. So that we build in, I'm going to call it the correct or the more applicable terms that are nation building and that are going to make sure that our children and children's children are very clear about what it means to be strong in the workplace, strong in the job, strong at home, strong in and every situation that we find ourselves in. So that's just my 2 cents on strong.
Yes, honey.
This is what you get. This is what you get. This is what you get.
So, Charlotte, one of the places that is most criticized when it comes to forcing the strong woman narrative is corporate South Africa.
Oh, gosh.
The Athena doctrine talks about how incorporating more feminine qualities in leadership. What qualities do you think your soft feminine side brings in your role that makes your success unstoppable?
So I will definitely speak as Charlotte and not represent any other women group out there. Because I am unique and I am uniquely strange and I own it with no apology. So in terms of my specific environment, I encourage my team to be vulnerable in when they lead. I make sure whatever your title or whether you're senior or junior, every 2 weeks you get an opportunity to lead a meeting for 2 hours and you bring a friend to take on a particular, let's say, section to inspire the team, but you are leading whether you are skilled or not, you know? And so when you talk about my skills, I empathize with those people, especially junior team members in my team that are not given an opportunity. And I had to wait years to be given a seat at the table. And I'm like, not under my watch. So I make sure that every single person that's in and around me gets an opportunity to speak and they will have a voice. And we look to their passions. So when they are hosting a meeting, if you love art, that meeting will be grounded on art and everybody better step up and take interest. So for me, I think it's just about creating enabling environments in corporate that are not always about the money, that are not always about the economy, and that are not always about finances. It's about seeing people where they are and allowing light to come into the team and put shadows in the corner where people back away and say, who am I to even stand on a podium to lead a meeting or a team? And that's how I lead, by just being intuitive as a woman, but intuitive as a leader and intuitive as a human being to say, where are my team on their journey to success and how can I encourage them to step up and have a voice?
So what is a strong woman who owns her success? What does she look like to you?
Oh, my
Because
word.
we've spoken about this so many times. She
Yeah.
owns her success.
Yeah.
It means different things to different women. What does it mean to
I
you?
think for me during COVID, it's just completely changed my perspective, and I'm treading on thin ground here. But a strong woman to me is someone who's flexible, is someone who's adaptable, is someone who's able to understand change and be able to align themselves within change. Because COVID forces you to be flexible. If you thought you were going to wake up at 9 and finish that assignment by 5 or finish that report by 5, you're not. Because there are other things going on that are just happening that are affecting your emotions, you know? And when you're required to have that flexibility, are you strong enough to keep yourself, your mental health, yourself in that? Are you able to adapt and say, you know what, can I please switch off my camera? I'm not able to switch on my camera right now. Are you able to adapt to that situation? Are you able to communicate that? So a strong woman for me has just changed into these words that are, obviously I'm not saying flexible as in like anything goes kind of thing, you know, but are you flexible in your lifestyle to adjust yourself? And I think for me it's always been so hard because everything was so planned. You know, before COVID it was, I've got 3 years to do this and then I have to, you know, and then I have to get married and then boom, boom, you know. And then COVID says, no, only 40 people are allowed in your wedding. No, you're not allowed 250.
Yeah.
Are you able to adjust that and
Yeah.
say, actually, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. I'm here now, and I need to be able to be flexible and adapt. And then what strategies do you have to equip yourself to adapt to that change and to that new system in your life? And for me, that's a strong woman, and that is not easy to do.
Yes.
To change your plan from what you expected to where you are is not an easy thing to do. And I think for me, we all need to learn that maybe I'm not going to go to New York this year because there's a ban. I'm not going to make that conference. And that hurts. That hurts, you know, because I was going to meet someone there and I
Yeah.
don't meet them.
Yeah.
And does that mean you need to break down? No, that means you need to now be flexible and say, you know what, I'm going to post about it. I'm going to write a story about it. So being flexible and being able to adapt is very important. It's a climate change word, but
Okay.
you know what?
Okay, hashtag science.
Hashtag, you know, hashtag. But I've learned that adaptation is such an important word when it comes to any kind of thing, whether it be climate, science, personal. You need to be able to adapt, and then you're able to, you know, find how to move forward from there.
Yeah. Adapt or die.
Yeah,
Adapt
You
and
have
thrive.
To adapt. You have
Yeah.
to, yeah.
Yeah. Last question, and this is for everyone on the panel. How do you set the boundaries you need to avoid being taken advantage of, but still staying strong? Boundaries, so very important.
Sure, look at the silence on the panel.
You know what? So my therapist once said to me, drew a picture and said, you've got this one place in you that is your sacred space, and this one room, what does it look like? And I drew that picture of what it looked like, and it was free and open for everybody else, right? And she said, I think that you lack having boundaries, because I don't mind you seeing everyone and being open and welcoming, but maybe put a glass around it, right? And that will allow you to, or allow certain people to not come in and violate that space. So being able to draw boundaries is also linked to truth, right? I said earlier on the thing around friends and our environments and our surroundings. Once you tell people your truth and you own it, you are able to, and if it's coming from a good place, you're able to set those boundaries. I didn't like how that made me feel, right? We're not fighting. I'm just saying, I just didn't like how that made me feel. You could say something to me now, and I'm like, I really like that advice, I just don't like the tone. It's how you look at things, right? And we must never be afraid, because I'm not the same person I was an hour ago before coming into this conversation. I've taken away certain things, and I'm changing, and I'm forever evolving, and that changes as well. It changes me. And so when I do tell people around me that, I'm not that tummy anymore. It's first, I'm used to doing this. It's a boundary. It's a truth. Accept it, let's move on.
Yeah.
Simple. Accept it, let's move on. Because we just are going to create the cycle of always scarring each other. And then, because you don't have boundaries, you go and bleed on people who didn't cut you. And it's the next person, and it's in that office, and it's in that. So it just keeps going, So you tell the truth, literally.
Yeah, and on the point of the truth, for me, a boundary is actually just yes and no. In Zulu, just say no, yes. And leave it there. And that's your boundary. I said
no
is
a sentence.
Yeah, it means I don't.
It's complete.
Sentence. That means don't run into explaining, because once you run into explaining yourself, then you run into this maze of never ending. So yes and no. Your yes is just no. I'm not available. Yes, I'm available.
My yes is my yes. My no is my no. But I can only be so firm when I know myself. Again, back to the core.
Back to the core.
Respect yourself.
In terms of boundaries, our boss always says at the beginning of every year, what is your Sunday Times poster for the year? And you give it a title, and mine for the year is Charlotte is always trusting of herself. And every single time I engage in a conversation that makes me uncomfortable, you go to that headline. It's almost like the Sunday Times poster that grounds you in every single situation, and you remind yourself, is what I'm about to say and how I'm going to say it grounded on my Sunday Times poster or that headline? And that's kind of what I use to anchor myself. I don't always get it right, but it's always nice knowing that I've got that anchor, and I've got that almost like it becomes scriptural for me almost, because I always say, am I true to who I am? Is how I'm going to deliver what I'm going to say truthful to who I am? Is it a depiction of how I was raised? And so I use that to basically help me to articulate the barrier. But I think one of the headline topics for the She Owns Her Success workshop is that no is a full sentence.
Yes.
A full sentence.
Yes. No. Full stop.
Full stop. Full stop.
No comma.
Yeah.
A doikie.
A doikie.
And it's as easy as that. I mean, like, we think, we always think that we want to manage people's expectations, right? And to not disappoint yourself. It's so much easier to come and apologize to yourself for failing yourself because you said yes to something you really didn't want to do. Come back. And all these things will always lead you back to love. They'll bring you back to love. Like, I'm saying no to you because I love you, and I actually can't do it. I'm saying no to you because I really, really love you, and I won't do it. And I'm not taking that meeting, and I love you.
I really do love you, all of you.
Yeah.
Trailblazers, successful people. How do you celebrate your success? I don't think that's something that we talk enough about. So yes, we all want to be successful. And then when you get there, how do we not just move on to the next thing? How do we sit here on this couch and be like, halala? So how do you celebrate your success, Charlotte?
I celebrate myself by small creature comforts that cannot be bought. Looking into my son's beautiful round eyes is how I celebrate my success as a parent, because like, I did that. Or looking at this stage and saying, gosh, I am part of a beautiful, intelligent team that put this set together to deliver a great message to ordinary South Africans that needed this. I did that. So I celebrated by affirmations in my head, and you can't buy that. So I try and find things where I can't attach a rand value to it per se, and that's how I celebrate and my success. What I need to do better of, and I am on my journey to do that, is to do more of that affirming on a more regular basis.
So I love that. Celebrate and more of it. Thank you so much. I could literally sit here and talk to you for hours, but we've run out of time.
Oh, Jesus. You see?
So quick.
But this conversation can continue on Instagram.
It will.
You know,
it
it can
shall. And
continue.
also, when y'all are in Cape Town, holla, hey?
Holla.
We're friends now. Before we wrap things up, some of our guests have some questions for Lovey Ajayi Jones, and she'll be dialing in to answer a few questions. Hello from Zanzi, Lovey. It's so good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Also, new hair. I love it.
You know, I had to spice it up a little bit.
So many questions, so much love coming through on the chat line. Zenat Simji wants to know, if you have fallen into the trap of accepting the first offer and years later it still limits you, how do you change the number that follows you?
Ooh, that's good. Honestly, you're probably gonna have to change jobs. It's hard to ask for a massive leap at the same company, you know, because they're going to be like, well, we've already been getting you at this price, so we can't fathom the idea that we now have to pay way more. That's why a lot of people will change companies to advance and to get the number that they actually want. So yeah, it's kind of tough. If you're not getting a promotion, like a major promotion at your current company, to see your numbers jump is kind of tough. So you might have to just go somewhere new.
And perhaps that's not the worst thing, eh?
Exactly.
Monty Monsha wants to know, how do you boost your confidence to negotiate? Clearly, everyone wants to get paid more, Lovey. How do we do it?
Well, you got to know that you negotiating is part of the game. They're not doing you a favor by offering you this job. So when you don't negotiate, you're actually going against the game's rules. So you got to know that the fear of, will they reject me? It's valid, but it should not stop you from doing and saying this number anyway. So if you have to, practice in the mirror, you know, whatever this big number is that makes you nervous, practice it, and then walk in there knowing that you are in there because they want you. You're somebody of value, whose perspective they want, whose gifts they want. And to find somebody else is more expensive for them than to give you the number that you want.
Charlotte, do you have a question?
Hi, Lovey. I'm halfway through your book. I'm absolutely loving it. And I wanted to ask you, and maybe it's unfair of me to ask you such a loaded question, so perhaps maybe you can give me the tweet version of your answer. What is an Noriki for those people who haven't yet opened your book? And can you give us steps on how to define our Noriki so that after today we can go and boost our confidence or write it down and start shaping it from home?
Yes, I think Noriki is a hype mantra. It's basically a way to honor who you are and whose you are. And, you know, in the book, I put a formula in there that's kind of Game of Thrones style. But I think, you know, it's really about honoring yourself and all the things about yourself that you're proud of. All the things about yourself that maybe you aren't proud of and you want to become proud of it. So, you know, for me, I'm a bestseller of books and, you know, I'm a side-eye sorceress. But I think that it just depends on you. Find, in the moments when you're feeling really good, write one. And then have it somewhere where you can revisit over and over again. So when you have to like get some extra confidence or need to negotiate, read your Noriki to yourself and go out into the world.
Thank you so much, Lovey. Evelyn or Lalo wants to know, what do you do when you have outgrown your space?
Ooh, it's like a, it's like a crab that's outgrown its shell. It just kind of has to leave it behind, which means you leave. You know, you might not be able to leave right now immediately. I think creating a plan is always good. So even if you realize, okay, I've outgrown it, I'm going to give myself 6 months to leave this shell. Well, plan for it, stack your money. So in 6 months, you have your end game and you can move. So I just think we have to understand that everything is static and everything is dynamic. You don't have to stay where you're not being served. You don't have to stay at the job that bores you. You can make the move, and don't be afraid to make the move.
But Lovey, what if we are afraid? What if we are very afraid? We are terrified. What then?
Well, you got to figure out what you're so afraid of. What is the thing that is so scary about making this move? Is it just because you're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to fail or not? Or is it that, you know, the unknown is scary? You got to figure out what's scary, because is that thing actually real? Is it likely to happen? And I actually think sometimes we build up the fear in our head, like it becomes this dragon, but you created the dragon, so you slay it. So we often spending so much time afraid, but we're not really even sure what we're afraid of. We're just afraid of the fact that we're going to leave our comfort zone, or the thing that we've known for such a long time, the job we worked at for a long time. Leave it. Yo, like, I think a lot of times when I'm scared and I do whatever the thing is that I'm afraid of, I end up going, it actually wasn't even that bad. I had spent all this time building it up in my head and creating the monster, and I'm like, it was not that bad. So I think a lot of times we are more afraid of the thing than the thing actually will present itself as tough. Like, it's like walking down a dark hallway. You're like, I don't know what's going to be in it. I'm afraid. And then you walk down and you realize there was nothing in the hallway the whole time. It's just because you couldn't see it.
So, Lovey, I read your book, and at some point you say that it took you years to call yourself an author, even though you'd been writing for years. At what point were you able to own your success and say, I, Lovey Ajayi Jones, I'm an author?
Yeah, no, I think I was afraid of the title. I was actually afraid of calling myself that, because I was afraid of failing at it. Because if you call yourself that thing, now you can fail, as opposed to if it was a hobby, you can just be like, oh, it's whatever, it didn't go well, it's just a hobby. But I think it's the ownership of the title and knowing that what you're risking is possible failure. And I think I finally said I'm a writer when I was sitting at an event next to a journalist from the BBC and one from CNN, and here I am, Awesomely Lovey, in the same room. So I had no other excuse to say, no, I'm not an author. I finally ran out of excuses. And I think that's powerful for a lot of us, because there's something that we are afraid of that's a title that might feel like it's too big for us because we don't want to fail. I think that fear of failure is really what's at the base of a lot of things. It stops us from doing a lot of things. So when you just realize, listen, failure is actually not the worst case scenario. I think regret is. So you just got to do it and hope for the best.
Lovey, what does success look like to you? What does a strong, successful woman look like to you? And how do you celebrate that success?
I think success looks like living life on my own terms, being able to make choices for myself, having the freedom to do it, having the money to do it, you know. And I think successful women are not looking to everybody else to make their key decisions. They're people who wake up and say, I love what I'm doing today, or I'm just going to take a nap today because that's what I feel like. And I celebrate successful women by highlighting them. You know, on my platforms, I'm surrounded by successful women. So for me, it's not even exceptional. It's the rule, you know. And I think it's every day we support each other, we cheer each other on, we challenge each other. And that's what it means to be a part of a successful crew.
Lovey, Stom Kize wants to know, she says, I'm single and gorgeous, but guys feel intimidated by my success. How do I find a partner who can be happy for my success and support me?
Yes. Any guy who feels intimidated by your success is clearly not the guy for you, because if you were to get with that guy, would he celebrate your wins or would he make you feel bad for it? So honestly, take the moments when you find the guy who feels intimidated by you as a blessing, because you just got a data point. It means walk away, all right? How do you find a guy? I don't know. I think you just have to continue doing what you do best, which is being dope, right? And the right guy will be attracted to it and will show up and say, yes, I'm with you on it. I got married 2 years ago. I met my guy at a random party. He didn't really know the awesomely lovey of it all, but like the thing about it is I've always been clear that I can't be with somebody who's intimidated by my wins, because it's a lot of winning over here. So you just gotta find yourself somebody who's also winning, so your win does not make them feel some type of way.
Lovey, I wish you were right here with us in studio. If you could see how everyone was just like, yes, Lovey for president. Also, some of our guests are here for the first time, so I know I asked you this question last week again, but I'm compelled to ask you. Lovey, are you going to come to South Africa again when the world opens up? The people, your fans here in South Africa, we want to know when.
Absolutely, I'd come to South Africa when the world opens back up. So as soon as, we get these variants in control, I would love to come back to South Africa. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people, amazing food. So, and then, yeah, we'll talk about Professional Troublemaker. We'll talk about all these other good things.
Thank you so much, Lovey Ajayi Jones. And you heard it from her mouth. When the world opens up, she will be in South Africa. Thank you also so much to our incredible panel. Loved chatting to all of you. It's giveaway time now. So at Momentum, we're all about giving women the tools and advice to have them own their success. And what's better than having a one-on-one session with a success coach to make it all happen? Can I have a drum roll, please? It was very close, but the winner is Rosalina Macabela.